Okay, sorry. So I'm going to repeat that one part just in case people are tuning in, and I suspect Brandy will want to edit out certain things after. So yeah, so this was started because Andrea John started with the Indigenous Language Club, a beading workshop that never ended up being put on. And so we had supplies for 20 participants, all these looms and beads and needles and thread. And then what happened was it was canceled and we put everything in storage, not really thinking ahead of time what we were going to do, thinking it was going to be on hold until First Nations House opened again. But then I was asked if I could develop some online content. And Andrea, she is busy with her coursework right now, so she won't be able to participate much for the first couple of workshops. But she's definitely going to be involved and probably popping in a little later, maybe with even some language content. So we decided to move it all online. And now we have everything locked up in storage. So now nobody has access to things. So, and not only that, we weren't really sure if we were going to be able to lend out the looms. Beads and needles, that's fine. But the looms, we only have so many and we're not sure. We didn't really have a system set up to lend them out. So I thought, okay, well, if we want to do this, we can send out beads. I have a little electric scooter. I can get around town and drop people's stuff off on their porch. Or we can courier. It actually doesn't cost that much for a courier in Toronto. Or we can mail it out. So, but we're not beading this week. So we're going to take people's information, anybody who needs some beads and needles. And so this week we're going to come up with our bead loom. And I wanted to basically, like Julie had said before some of us had joined, you know, she made a box loom when she was younger, just out of a cardboard box and putting slits in it. And actually, if you look really close at there, you can see that this is a wooden box with slits in it. But you can also see the gap in the tooth there. And that's because it was too fragile and it broke. So I ended up scrapping that method for this one, and I came up with something else for it, which we'll get to. So yeah, I basically thought, what kind of content can we have? How can we do this? Maybe we could all get together online. Platforms are changing, like the Zoom platform. It's actually pretty darn good and pretty easy to use, especially for someone like me. And but we all need to make a loom in order to start beading. So I went around my house thinking, all right, gather everything you can that you can possibly make a bead loom out of that won't cost money or destroy anything, or at least not destroy it too badly. I did destroy that a little bit, but that's okay. I didn't mind. So I have a bunch of different methods that I want to show people today. And you had a handout, and if anybody needs that handout, I can probably email it to you. But there was a handout saying the different things you could gather. And basically, a bead loom is comprised of 3 different things. You need a frame of some sort so that you can hold your work on and hold your threads in place. All kinds of different frames. This is just a regular file tray. This one ended up being my favorite loom, and I'll explain that more later. So you need a frame of some sort. We also have a picture frame you can use. And a coat hanger will also work. This one's the easiest, and probably like anybody could make this one with probably anything, even in a bachelor apartment. Okay, so that's the frame part. And then afterwards, you need something to separate your threads, because basically you're going to have a number of threads lined up, just like this. There's several threads there, like strings on a string instrument. So you're going to have them lined up, and you need something to separate them so that they don't get all tangled, so that your beading can happen evenly and you can have good tension. So things that you can use to separate threads around the house for free: combs. These ones are great because they're nicely separated. You can also use springs. The springs are actually what's on these most common beading looms, the cheaper and really lightweight beading looms, but only for smaller pieces, not too wide. So that's springs right there. So you can use springs you have around in your house. This spring I made by wrapping wire around a wooden spoon handle and then slit it off. You can also make wire out of paper clips, and we'll get to that in a second. And then another thing that works quite well is, instead of wire, you can wrap around some leather cording around the, at least around the edge. I'll show you the one that we're actually going to do it for, but it needs to be a thin and smooth leather cording. If it's rough, it'll catch the threads, and that can be annoying and possibly even snag it or break the thread, which you don't want. And then finally, the last thing you'll need is something to anchor all those threads that you have lined up. You'll need to anchor it on each end. And for that, you can use things like an eye screw. You can use just a regular screw. Even have a pair of stud earrings if you only have that around your house. And then, of course, you can use, of course, I lost the nail. Well, you can use a nail. You know what a nail looks like. You can also use a tack, but sometimes tacks have too short of a stub to put an eraser to stop it on the other side. So you do need something to stop it on the other side. I realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm Danielle Desmarais. Everybody calls me Danny. Totally forgot about that. Sorry. And I work for First Nations House. I forgot that as well. And this is our first online content. So bear with me as I try and figure this stuff out. Okay. So am I free to move on to the first one?
Yeah, I guess.
All right. So the easiest, that requires almost no tools, is the picture frame version. So I have a picture frame here with obviously no glass. And I decided you're going to need to put an anchor to anchor your thread, the ones that I talked about at the last piece. I decided not to put it on the outside because I want to use this frame again, so I didn't want the holes showing. So I decided to put the holes on the back for where I'm putting on the anchor. So when I put on the anchor, I hammered a tiny little nail in there to start the hole, and then I don't have a drill. So I use, whenever I need something and I need to drill a hole and I don't have a drill because the battery in my drill died and there's not another one, I just use an eye screw, and I just, screw it in and make the hole and then unscrew it. And then I have the hole I need. Grab the screw. I already did these holes obviously before because I made the handout that everybody got. If anybody needs a handout, let me know. It'll be posted with this video afterwards, at least the instructional part of this video. So I'm just putting the screws in both ends. And one's a little bigger than the other, and I only did it because that's the screws I had around, and the whole point of this is to just do things or stuff around your house because we're not really supposed to go anywhere for a while. And one of the nice things ended up happening was this screw was larger than the other one, so when I have it laying down, it actually has a small little bit of a tilt. It does end up having a bit of a wobble, so I just put the edge of the last screw over like this, and then I just have it on a slight tilt, and it's kind of perfect because when I have the thread set up here and here, my hand can just get under here nicely and do the beadwork I need to do. If you haven't beaded before, you'll understand what that means a little bit later. So with the screws in place, now I'm just going to literally tape this comb on, and I'm only going to do the one side because the other side is exactly the same. So I'm bracing it between my legs, and I'm doing an anchor piece, a small piece, just to anchor it in place. You want to make sure that the comb, that the teeth are just a little bit below on the frame, so that it's not, the teeth aren't too high up. And that's only because this is a weird looking comb. It has bumpy edges, and so I don't want the threads to get bothered by that comb. So I just put an anchor piece in there. Tape one more. So I want to make sure it's going underneath. So it's under here, and this is flush with here. And that stops it at least a little bit when I pull in, because your threads are going to be pulled down, like towards each other. And so this anchors it in place. So this, I'm actually pushing a lot on this. So that's in place. And then I'm wrapping it around this way. Okay, so basically that's it. I do the other thing on the other side. We'll anchor the threads here, pull them, put them, line them up within the comb, line them up with this side of the comb, and pull it through. So that's a picture frame one. Okay, so I wanted to do this cardboard box one, and it's in the handout as well. And basically, I just wanted to screw in a couple of washers here, 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 and here. And washers are just those round metal discs that are used in plumbing and a number of other construction and hardware things. But I didn't have any washers. So, and I was going to use the bolts, these little nuts and bolts, to hold the washers in place, but I didn't have any. But I had a whole bunch of old keys. And if I know there's a lot of people out there who are like me, who have a whole bunch of old keys from moving around in different places and everything like that. So you obviously have to have your nut and bolt of the size that it can fit through the hole. And all I did was just put 4 holes, one on each side. I will point out that the box that I had made, I folded a tab over here. So this is too thick. And I just did that, like 2 pieces of cardboard thick. I just did that just to hold it in place a little bit better. So you put the bolt through the one key, put it through here, grab another key and put it on the other side. Basically, we're making a little frame to hold in the comb. This is going to take me a second to screw this on because all I had was really long nuts and bolts. And I'm actually in a 14-day quarantine because I had symptoms and a fever and everything like that last week. But I am totally recovered, though I don't get out of isolation until Friday. I can't wait to sit on my lawn Friday and see fresh air for the first time in weeks. So I'm doing the other side as well, adding the second key. So there's 1 key, 2 key, and the bolt. Putting the nut on. Just gonna put that down. So I'm pretty sure you guys know how to twirl. Okay, and because it's a bolt and I don't want the keys to move, I do need to use a screwdriver to screw it in so it's nice and tight. So I hold the nut with my hand and then just screw that in a little bit more. All right, so that's tight. Do the other side. Okay, so there is, I'm trying to get the good angle here. So there's my first frame braces. And then you just slip the comb in there. And that's it. You can put a little piece of tape, or if you have one of those bulldog clips, which of course I do, but I can't see them. So I'll have to, oh, they're under here. No, okay. Oh, they're there, right in front of me. So you can just put a bulldog, oh, that one doesn't look big enough. You can put a piece of tape, or you can just put a bulldog clip there and there, and that'll hold it in place as well. And so, yeah, your comb's good to go. Grab an earring if that's the method you choose. I'm showing you all different methods. Obviously, the earring won't work for a picture frame. So I put a little hole there ahead of time. I have the little stud there. Let's see if we can get that closer. Maybe if I do it this way. There you go. You can see the stud earring. Now, if your earring backing isn't very strong, I recommend you just get an eraser. This is my little Chewbacca eraser that I wasn't using to erase pencil marks. Anyways, cut a piece out, and I mean that's what we use for earring backings anyways, is little pieces of eraser when I was younger, whenever they fell out and we lost them. So yeah, you can use that. So that's the comb method, using keys as little braces or brackets. Okay, so those are two comb methods. And I just want to point out that, you know, you could also just put the comb here on a box. You'd need a bigger bulldog clip, because that's too low. So if I had a larger bulldog clip, it could be raised up higher. And I do have one, but they're over there, so I'm not going to bother on that one. But you could bulldog clip that in place. But that's not the method I'm going to use for this one. So as I pointed out, these teeth that I carved in didn't take. This was a wooden box from Dollarama, and it's balsam wood, so it's real lightweight. This method might work for a cigar box because it's a real compact, dense cardboard, and also a dense wood box as well would hold the rigid teeth. Basically, you'd be sawing in a comb as thread spacers. But because it's balsam wood, this didn't work for that. So I had to come up with a different method. And so basically what I needed was to put a spring here somehow. And I thought, if I put a spring on a chopstick, put it here and bulldog clip it, and you can see that in your handout, that would work perfect. So I always have stovepipe wire in my house because I used to make jewelry with it. I used to sell it at Siren Jewelry. And it's 20 gauge, but if you don't have stovepipe wire, or just common house wire, you can use paper clips. I recommend large ones because you need a lot of the small ones. And when you make the small one, or when you make the large one, this one was a spring I made, which is for the next one I'll show you. But this paper clip, now let's get behind my black. Okay, this paper clip made these, I think that's 4 different spacers. So you can get a few of those. But oh, sorry, let me grab it. So I already have some springs made. But in order to make a spring, I'm just going to show you a small one. So to make this spring, which is going to be large enough, I think, for 17 thread, that's a good sized bracelet. I used about not quite a meter. I'd say about 2.5 feet. So I have my wire here. Sorry if I was showing flesh. I'm just cutting it. Now you can use most pliers except for the miniature jewelry pliers. Those ones are a little hard to finagle for something like this. I like this size because I can manipulate, but also it's sturdy enough to hold the wire. This wire doesn't need it as much, but the paper clips are really hard to turn. So in this case, I have the takeout chopsticks aren't round, and you want it to be round. You don't want it to be ovate, because if you spread it apart, then the spring will then warp in a weird way. So you really, when you're making springs from scratch, you really want to have something round. So I have this chopstick, and I'm just basically holding the wire down with my thumb and taking the other piece and bending it a little bit so that I've created something. Let's see if we can get that showing. Created something of, I'm trying to, it's hard to see. Okay, there we go. Just a bend mark, I guess like a hockey stick. They use that reference online today, to stay 2 meters away or a hockey stick length. And I was like, that is so Canadian. I just twisted it around once. And then from here, I just, I hold this thumb to hold the incoming wire down. And then I just slowly move it in the direction so that I keep building the spring this way. And so you just turn, you can make them very close together if you want and separate it after. It'll let you get more cycles around at once. Okay, so I'm not going to finish that because there's no point. But once you have it done, let's see, there, I think you can see it. So there's a spring there, and I'll just cut it, and then I have a spring ready to go. But we already have one. This nice, lovely one I made last week. And so I'm basically putting the chopstick through. At the ends, I crimp them in a little bit so that they're hugging the chopstick, so that it just doesn't move around too much. You can use the pliers to do that if it's a stronger wire, or you don't want to break your nails. So then I just have a spring on the chopstick. I take bulldog. Whoop. Take a bulldog clip. Literally, just put it there and there. And that side's done. You do the same for the other side. And then for here, I already put the hole in there. It's balsam wood, so it's really easy to do. You can practically like just stick your nail through and put an eye screw. But again, you could use a nail or other screws. If you use a nail, you might have to bend it if it doesn't have a big enough head on it to hold the thread in place. You might have to bend it down, but we'll get to that with a different example. So that's just your chopstick, wire, bulldog clip, wood box, or you could use it on any box. I'm going to take that piece off. Okay, so with this this very simple concoction of a spring and a chopstick, I guess you could use a pen too, colored pencil, whatever. I just want to show that you could also just clip it onto anything. Like that. This is my file folder. I love this one. I'm going to show you this one next. This is like one of those accidental good surprises. But yeah, I just clipped it on there and it's ready to go. But of course, since this is mesh wire for my file tray, I decided to just straight up take the spring and put it right on the mesh in between, because it was a nice divider already. So when I did the paper clips, I did it exactly like the wire I showed you before. But because this paper clip is a little sturdier, and I chose it because it's longer, it's a little holder to hold on to when you're wrapping the cord around. So you'll probably need pliers, like a good pair of pliers, to hold that piece of metal in place as you twirl the paper clip around the whatever it is, chopstick or wooden spoon or pen or whatever. So I've already made these springs, And basically I'm showing this for anybody who has some kind of mesh item at home, and there's another one it'll work for too. And I just take the end of the spring, and you will want to make sure, you will notice here that I have an end that's bent out, and this end is not bent out. It's ready to thread through, but this one's going to stop it from going any further once I have it to where I want it to be, once it's fully on the thing. So I lead with the one that wants to lead, and end with the one that wants to end. And basically I just put it through one of the holes, and it'll be a little bit difficult for the first couple because you'll have to sort of push it, but it's wire, so you can bend it a little bit to get it into the next one, twirl it around, then there's one more, twirl that around, it starts to get a little funny at the end, and now it's in there nice and tight. And this is stopping it from going further one way. And then I'll put another one here or wherever, and then that'll be in place. So let's put, well, I'm not going to put them all in because we're going to save a little bit of time. And then I just want to show you what I use to anchor. I literally just, again, grabbed a screw that I had lying in my house. I often will pick up screws off the ground and put them in my pocket for later. And they've come in handy for this. And I literally screwed it through the hole. It's not damaging anything. It's just that the threads are holding it in place. And then I have that screw in there. Doesn't even need a bolt or anything, just because of the nature of this file folder. And the thing I love about this one is that when you set up your threads, not only can you set it up all the way across there, so you get a nice big one, but you can store stuff underneath. Or when I was making the bracelet you see in the handout that you have, I had all my beads right here and the bracelet that I was beading, and I just pick it up and everything was right there in a nice little neat package. So that was a wonderful surprise, and it's lightweight. So that was a wonderful surprise loom. I'm going to show you one other thing about springs that is super cool. So I love using up things so that they don't end up in the garbage. This is last year's day timer from First Nations house. I realize it's backwards on the video, but this was my day timer from last year. I love this day timer so much. But to be honest, I keep this one because it's emotionally significant, because Lisa Boyven did the image on it, and the teaching inside was wonderful. But also because I have difficulty throwing things away. So I have a number of day timers. And I thought, oh my gosh, look at that spring. That's a free spring. So I took it out of one of the other ones. I had to, the end of it was bent in to prevent it from sliding off. So I had to alter that. You could also just cut it off. But look, you can just do this and you have like 30 or 20 or something like that. Now keep in mind, if this is a really wide one, you might want to go every other hole. I don't know, because this is my first time doing this one. Well, it seems to be doing it. So this is going to take a minute, so I'm not going to do the whole thing. But yeah, free spring. And you didn't have to bend anything, and you used up something that you didn't need anymore. So if you're like me and you have old day timers around, I'm not going to finish that because I don't want to waste people's time watching that. And then you just finish the other on the other side and you have a frame set up. Now you can do that as well if you have a file tray, something like this, in metal or plastic. There are some slats here, but there's a lip on the edge. So putting a spring through, it'd have to be a really big spring because this is deep and this is deep this way, so it'd be a really large spring. So what I did for that one then is the leather cording. So about the same length. All you really need is a piece of tape to hold the one end in when you're, actually I'll put that on at the end when I'm done. And so you literally just thread it through, and I went through each spot 3 times. And you will want to make, oh, yeah, that's why I wanted that. I forgot. Yeah, I knew what I needed. Yeah, okay, anchor that down, or else you're just going to end up pulling it through like I did. All right. Let's try this again. So I'm threading it through each slat 3 times. I'm going to do this a few times so that you guys can see what it looks like when it's set up. You can use a shoelace. You can use satin cording. And another thing I was thinking of is if you have an old pair of earbuds, the wire from an earbuds, if you're about to throw them away, or one of the ears crapped out or whatever, you can use that wire as well. I wouldn't recommend plugs. Well, charge cord, sure, but plug cords, because it's not round and it's too thick, it ends up being something of a problem. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and just show you what it looks like on this one side. So I did 3 in here, 3 in here. I only got to 2 there. But then when you spread them out, you have enough room there to have your threads anchored down. Now I'm going to put a double nutted bolt here as an anchor, because I don't want to damage this tray. It's still a good tray. I'm going to use it if I ever do businessy type stuff. So basically, in order to do this, you need to have it anchored on one side and the other side so that it sticks out as a post. So you have a bolt with 2 nuts. And take this off. So you just have the one on right now when you start. Oh, okay. Okay, and you're going to remember that I said I didn't have any washers. So I used keys for the one. But another thing you can do for washers is you can just cut them out of a piece of plastic from a food tray, or you can cut them out of cardboard. This was a soda box, and a number of other things, like even lid from a margarine container if you're recycling that. So I cut out some, did that whole drill a hole thing in by using a screw that was large enough. So I have this all set up. So I have a washer, and I want to have the washer on the bolt. I'm going to have 2 on there. And the reason why I'm doing that is to protect the tray from any damage, and also to stop the bolt from going through that slat. Oh, this is harder to get on than it looks like. Should have made the hole maybe a little bit bigger, but this will work out well. Okay, so I have that in place. I'm just going to put that through here, and I can decide, do I want it lower, do I want it higher? I may need to move it in the future. And putting another washer there to protect the other side, taking the other nut and sliding that on there. And as with before, you need to hold the nut in place on the one side while you screw this side in. Now, if you keep going, you could end up screwing so that it's completely flat against the nut here, but you do want to leave a little bit of room to anchor your thread. But you can adjust this later when we get to the actual beading side of things. And so there's your bead loom on the one side. And the thing I like about these trays in particular is they're long enough for any bracelet length. I think they're like 30 centimeters or something like that, so you never have to adjust your threads. but also I like how there's nothing on the one side. There's a little bit of lip here, but I'm never putting my hand in on this side. So there's all this room to fit my hand underneath when I need to move up and down with my beading. So I really like that one. But I like the mesh version the best because it's just nice and lightweight. Okay, so this guy. I thought, I mean, this is such a simple frame. Basically, it's a one-piece metal wire bent into this shape. It also has little bends here to hold these wooden dowlings in place that you can loosen or tighten, so that when you're moving your threads, if you're moving your work forward and making something really long, this will adjust your tension of your threads on both sides and move your work along. So I thought, what do we have? Do I have wire around the house? And then I thought I didn't have anything this thick, and I thought this is basically a coat hanger. So I grabbed a coat hanger and started to make this guy. So basically, I started with this, and I kept pretty much that full length at the bottom. Then you have this and that side together is much longer than this side, obviously, right? So what I wanted to do was measure the bottom and then measure that out from the center here. And then I just bend it all into place. I ended up leaving the hook there because I thought it could be a useful handle for moving things around. I don't know. But I also thought that if I broke it off, I'd have possibly metal that will cut myself or something like that, or I might catch on something. So I thought it was just easier to leave it in place. I am considering bending it over here to make the frame even stronger and brace it, but I haven't got around to that yet. So what you do is you bend it into the shape, put screws on or springs on here and here, and then these chopsticks on either side to hold your threads in place. So we'll get to that part in 1 second. The bending part, sorry, just give me 1 second. I started here and basically pushed it into the wire. And then you're going to have to, if you've ever worked with pliers before, this is definitely a plier working wire work. It's a harder wire, so it's harder to do, but you're going to want to try and even things out as you go. And it's almost like sculpting with wire, but you definitely have a distinct, simple shape in mind. So that's one side done. I'm using hand length measurements because that's what me and my people do without actually using a measuring tape. That's how I grew up doing things until I went to design school and learned how to use a measuring tape. Start to bend that into place. Gonna straighten that out a little, bend it a little more. Now this hanger version, I will point out that it is definitely for thinner bracelets, right? I think the most I got on here, there might be 17, but that's pushing it. And I don't know if I'd trust going out to the end. So I'd keep this one around 15, probably at most. But there's a lot of bracelets that, you know, only 10, or the one that I was working on the other frame is 2 long. Or sorry, 7 long or 7 wide. So we got something like this, and you might even have certain hangers that are really large actually have a square frame. So you might already have that in your house. And then basically I want to bend it up like this one is. So I'm eyeballing that. Actually, I'm going to do this first. I need to lengthen the one side. So in order to lengthen it, because it seems a little uneven in the length, I took out some space in there. I extended this part here, there, so that it's evener or more even in length. Okay, so now we're going to bend it, and I don't need to go too high. You do one side a little bit at a time to make sure that you have it where you want it to be. Again, you could always measure and mark that off too, but I'm not that kind of person. So we bend the one way. It's a sturdier wire. I will point out that in my closet, I had one hanger that was really flimsy, and I didn't think it would work for that. Okay, so you got your frame. Then you put on the spring, which is quite simple. You literally just, on the edge there, whoops. Am I doing this wrong? Ah, right, okay. Yep, just twirl it around. The nice thing about this is if you do it on the edge, it's really, really easy. You just enter it from this way, twirl it around. Then when it's all on, you're going to want to pinch in that end so that it holds a little tighter against the wire so it doesn't slide down. So I don't know if I'll be able to show that. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. And it's bent over. And that'll stop it from moving. And then you're going to do the same on the other side, except I didn't have it fully on yet. There we go. And there we go. It holds the springs in place. Then for the ends to hold, you grab a chopstick. You cut it in half or break it in half or half cut, half break it. You put little holes in it in the center, really, really tiny little holes, and use a nail. Although in hindsight, a safety pin might work, but you'd have to bend it. So a real thin finishing nail, but it needs to be long enough, about 1 inch long, to get through both. And you hammer it into through those. Now keep in mind, if you don't put the hole in first, it'll probably split the chopstick. You don't necessarily have to have that nail there because you can also wrap the thread around the chopstick, but I found it makes it easier. So basically, with that nail there, you've made this little bracket brace thing. I bent the end of the nail so it doesn't come out or scratch me. And there's the head of the nail, and I bent that as well so that it can anchor the thread a little better. You take your frame with the spring, you stick one end through here and one end through there so that you have, let me see. Sorry, I'm trying to find a way to show this. Okay, there, I think I can see that. I hope you guys can. So yeah, we have one chopstick behind, one chopstick in front, with the nail head sticking out this way, although I suppose it doesn't really matter. And then for this part, all you do is rubber bands. And rubber band on the other side to hold it in place. And that tension is the tension between the two chopsticks being separated by the wire, it really holds it in place nice and tight. So there's the one side. I think that, yeah, that should show it. And it's like really in there. It's not going anywhere. So you wrap your thread there and then line it through there. And that's the last frame. Or you can buy one online. But I prefer to make stuff and things around the house. When you're making these bead looms, keep in mind whether you want to still keep the object afterwards, like the picture frame or your file tray. I doubt you're gonna want to put this back into shape to have a hanger. I'm pretty sure I've seen a lot of these for free on the street. So, and if you need one, I can send one with your beads. But yeah, so that's all the beading, the bead loom stuff.